Okay, let's get started. Greg's not with us today, so Kelly, do we have an opening YouTube video, perhaps?
This poem is for the track folk who just love the smell of ethanol, for the carb day cut sleeve sporters, the snake pit dancers, and coke lot campers with bald eagle bandanas. This is an anthem for the hearts that have surged the scope of the pagoda, for the hands that know the feeling of slapping the North Vista tunnel ceiling, for the lips that whisper along with Florence Henderson when she sings, yes, this poem is for the 500 fans that love fast, loud things, the hot dog chompers, and buttermilk sippers, and granddads with ledger pads and suede cases and locked zippers. This is for every kid that stood along the stretch, with toes on top of a cooler and their fingers gripping the fence, for the open wheel gearheads, parade wavers, and Legends Day fans, for the moms smeared with baby sunscreen changing diapers in the stand. This is for the brickyard pickers, the marching band clappers, the bucket drummers, and gasoline alley cats. This is for the pit crews, the announcers, the flyby pilots in the sky, for the girl who'd never seen her dad cry until the day Dan Weldon died. This is for the Andy Griffith neighbors, the binocular watchers, the concession yellers hawking cold brews. This is for every shoulder with a Memorial Day tattoo. This is for the drivers willing to go bumper to bumper, for the flag flappers and the earbud and clutched palm fist pumpers. This is your poem, Indianapolis, taking the turn with direct injection. Race fans, thank you for being the sparks that start the engines.
Way cool. Oh, I like that. Bravo for finding that, Kelly. That's wonderful. I would like to start our announcements with Jeff. Since Jeff's on, I want to publicly recognize Jeff and his team for putting on a wonderful international convention in Denver. If there were any mistakes made, nobody knew it. They must have been all behind the scenes because it seemed to be flawless to me, Jeff. So thank you, and thank all of your team who worked tirelessly and effortlessly to make that such a smooth program. And we had some astounding speakers, and we got a lot done at the conference. So thank you,
I
Jeff, to
appreciate
one and all.
I appreciate the investment that the Columbus Club of Indianapolis continues to make in not only the service that they have performed for 110 years in the community, but also in their own members and subsidizing some of the cost of getting them to convention. I think part of the drop in our convention attendance has been the fact that less and less clubs are doing that. So I appreciate the investment that the club continues to make, and so thank you for taking a week out of your life and coming to Indianapolis, both you, Mary, and Roger.
Well, it was a great time to have a great time and meet new people from all over the world. So that's great. A few announcements. So upcoming next week, the 23rd, we're working on, the board is meeting, and we're working on our vision statement. What do we do and why do we exist? We're focusing on the areas of support and how they impact the community. We want to share our wow, why we're so good, that makes you enthusiastic about bringing other people into the club. Our next social supper is next Tuesday, the 23rd. It's going to be downtown, 5:30 at Lovino's, Louvino on Mass Avenue. We're meeting at 5:30 as usual. So text or email me and let me know if you can attend, and bring somebody with you, spouse, somebody else. I don't know, somebody. So next week is Elizabeth Carr, and remember we had to cancel her a while back because she was ill. She's the nation's first in vitro fertilization baby. So that's next Thursday, and that's going to be, it's on Zoom, sorry. Another social idea that we had, Karen Burns is opening her condo in downtown Indianapolis. She did this a few years ago when she was at what was converted from the athletic club, but now she's at another location. So that's on Tuesday, the 30th. And light refreshments, bring your own booze. Let me know as well. So email or text me if you are coming and how many. And I did send out an email to everyone, directions, where to park, etc. is in that. So look in your email file for that, and let me know if you're coming or not. The next luncheon, lunch bunch at Iozo's is going to be August 19th. So let Roger know about that if you'd like to attend. It's always wonderful food. The next foundation meeting is the 21st of August. We're forming an allocations committee to compile and recommend club funding requests to the foundation board. Roger will be reaching out to chairs for our signature events and others. So if you're interested in this and you want to participate, please let Roger know so he can put you on the team. We want great ideas. So if you've got some, let Roger know. Graham Honecker and Alex Core will be discussing their book, A Blessing, Not a Burden, on the 22nd of August here at the Columbia Club. And he will also be bringing Austin Parkinson on the 12th of September to provide an update on Butler's women's basketball. Okay, so that's a lot of information. If you didn't write it all down, go to indykiwanis.org and everything is there for you to look at and put in your calendar. Let's see. Congrats to the foundation board member, Laura Berry. She was named an IBJ Woman of Influence last year and now an honoree for the Indiana 250 Most Influential Leaders. And she's not the only one in our club who has done that. So other influential leaders of which she's joining their ranks are Sarah Evans Barker, federal judge, Andy Mallon, CIB, Fred Payne, United Way, Dennis Bland with the Center for Leadership Development, Ryan Vaugh with Sports Corps, Emily Kruger, 16 Tech, Quinn Buckner and Danny Lopez, the Pacers, Jeff Smulyan, Emmis, who was at our meeting last week at the Columbia Club, Julie Rowe Lash with Horizon League, Pete Wald and Jim Irsay with the Colts, and Doug Bowles with IMS. Okay, now on with the show, as they say. So our speakers, you all know them well, but here we go. So Mike Halstead, 1987 graduate of Ball State, founded the Halstead Architects in 1993 to provide reliable, progressive, and community-conscious architecture. He's been on the Kiwanis Foundation Board, Kiwanis Club president in 2018, and the Civic Award recipient in 2019. Chuck Cotterman, a 1978 Ball State graduate with 30 years of leadership experience in architectural design and project management. The past 23 years with Architectura, a Kiwanis Board Club member who leads our Marion County Football Awards, which was fabulous this past year, by the way. And Eric Rowland, a 1986 Wabash grad and principal at Luminant, Kiwanis Foundation Board, our upcoming president for 2024-25, and the Career Award recipient in 2023. So, gentlemen, take it away. The floor is yours.
I'll start out with sort of
All
a
right.
general a description, Mike and Eric, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'll just sort of kick the ball off here. The Safety Patrol is a group of Indianapolis Motor Speedway employees. And I became involved 2 years ago, thanks to my good friend Mike. And I've always loved being out at the Speedway. I've gone, good grief, 35 straight races, I think. And I've missed the last 2 because I've been on the Safety Patrol, but I've loved every minute of it. And so I got involved because of Mike, and I found out he was a yellow shirt, and I've always wanted to be a yellow shirt, which is sort of another name because we all wear the same thing, and it's a required uniform. And there's all different kinds of types of people on the safety patrol. A lot of people have been there forever. I don't know, 30 years, 40 years. Eric, I don't know if that's been your experience too with some of the people you've been in a group with, but they're involved with parking. They're involved with, parking cars. They're involved in helping people find their seats in the stands. They're involved with just about anything that goes on at the grounds. We have an orientation every April, about the 20th of April. And we meet in one of the buildings there on the grounds. And this year there were probably 600 people there. And that wasn't all of them. So that's a lot of yellow shirts. Now, Mike and I, we're where the action is, which is the pit and garage area. So we drew the short straws there, which is where everything happens. Now so we're involved with our supervisors tell us every morning when we come on shift, let's make sure nobody gets run over today, because that's basically what we do, because there's all kinds of cars, pedestrians crossing. If you've ever been anywhere near Gasoline Alley, you know that the cars come out of the garage, they go through Gasoline Alley, and they go out to the pits. So there's lots of cross traffic, and then that's also where pedestrians go cross back and forth from Pagoda Plaza to their seats. So it's a constant flow of cars and traffic and vehicles, and anything going to the pits has to go through Gasoline Alley. So I don't know where we also are involved with, obviously, guest services, which is what it says on the back of our hat. I don't know if you can read that, but guest services. Now, I don't know if that came about when Roger Penske took over or not, but he is very focused on guest services. He's plowed a lot of money. As you know, Mr. Penske bought the Speedway in 20, just before COVID hit. And of course, the 20 race was canceled. And he plowed like $20 million into the Speedway, getting things shipshape, because it had fallen into some disrepair, and it's a big area. It's monstrously big if you've never been there. There's actually a racetrack in the third turn out by where the new snake pit is. The old snake pit, as many of you know, was in turn 1. The new snake pit, which is where the concert's going on during the race for the kids. There's a techno concert that goes on in turn 3 while the race is going on. I'm not sure a lot of those folks even know there's a race going on, but anyway, there's a lot of activities, so we're involved with keeping people safe, and we're not supposed to say, we're advised, don't say I don't know. Being a part of guest services, we say we're supposed to get anybody that has a question, we need to get an answer for them. And also, we're not supposed to touch a guest, no matter how inebriated they are. You're not supposed to touch them or grab them in any way. We've got to get a supervisor, because there's different structures of hats. We're brown, and then there's a what is it, Mike? White hat and yellow hat, white hat. I don't know. I'm not sure the order.
It's yellow and then white
And
is
white's above the
a
yellow.
general supervisor. Yeah.
So if you've got someone that's out of control, you've got to get a supervisor to sort of step in if they're completely irrational. Anyway, that's sort of the long and short of what those 600, 700, 800 people do during the month of May, and also this weekend. And Mike, I don't think you're working this weekend. I'm working the Brickyard tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. I have some anecdotal stories that I've collected. Although, like I said, I've only been there 2 years. But the one thing I've discovered this year is that a race fan is never, ever on race day in a bad mood, even with a 4-hour rain delay. Everybody was in a great mood, and they entertain themselves. They'll find something to do. And it seemed like my experience this year was that I was checking credentials, which is a lot of our responsibility in the garage area. It seemed like everyone had a garage and pit pass. Somehow they got a garage and pit pass. Mike, you were there too with me. And it seemed like when it started raining, everybody came to the garage area because there was nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do. And there were 100-yard dash races with a lot of
Exactly.
kids. And the fans in the pagoda and the stands were watching the kids run back and forth. There was a lot of clapping and shouting. It was really funny. Outcome of the rain delay was the track meet, the impromptu track meet that occurred last year. That was fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there were, so, you know, when the lightning started in the area, of course, you can't provide shelter for 300,000 people. It's impossible. So the Speedway came on the announcement. Dave Calabro came on the PA system and said, you can't stay, basically, you can't stay in the stands, but we don't have a plan for you. So exercise your own plan,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
And so they stayed in the stands, particularly if they were undercover.
So
Nobody really left.
some stayed in the stands, and but basically everybody entertained themselves, and some left, some came back. It was a 4-hour delay, and a lot of them came
I
to
say some of us went to our RVs, so
Yeah.
yeah. If you had some, well,
the
that's
beer
the,
was cheaper there.
the Speedway provides some their staff with parking or with camping. You can camp there. I've worked with people that live in Florida that come up for 2 weeks in May and camp on the grounds, and I don't think they're charged.
Yeah, not if they're a yellow shirt.
Not if they're yellow shirt. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
if they're
could
yellow
camp
shirt,
there
they're not charged.
and I just come up. They come up for the race and then go back home. But anyway, no one's in a bad mood. But there are two distinct types of fans. There are fans, particularly at the 500. There are fans that follow racing and are really involved in racing and understand the 500, the race cars. And there are those fans that are there for the event, the 500 event. And they get a pit pass or a garage pass from one of the hospitality tents, and they appear at the gate. They've got their credential, and they say, "So what is this? What's this back here?" I said, "Well, that's where they keep the cars." So they have no idea anything that's
It's
going on.
amazing. It's amazing how many fans will get to Gasoline Alley and ask me, where are the cars? Where are the garages? Where are the pits? And I was like, well, pits are right there. Walk through. Yeah.
Walk through, exactly. So that's always a surprise to me that you have the two different, distinctively different type of people that know everything that's going on in IndyCar racing, and then you have the other type of fan that's there just because I don't know, maybe they were handed a ticket and say, "Hey, here's the ticket. Go to this event. It's pretty neat." And they always end up in the pit and garage area because someone tells them to go down there, see what's going on. So that's sort of just some, I've talked too much. One of you guys could talk to you about some of your experiences, but
Well, I
Well,
can chime in just because Mike and Chuck are both in the Yellow Shirts organization, and the Yellow Shirts they're really part of the Speedway. The Speedway oversees that program. I'm involved from the festival side, so we're sort of the party that goes around the race. And the 500 festival is not owned or controlled by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're partners with the Motor Speedway. It's a not-for-profit organization, and basically our role is to sort of build out the weekend to sort of enhance the spectacle, if you will, that is the 500. So it's a largely volunteer organization. There is a modest paid staff that just moved into new space over on Brookside Road, over in those warehouses that have been rehabbed over there. But the festival really kind of works year round in terms of there's an education program for school age kids to try to help them understand the interest of racing, try to get them to be the fans that know about the cars as opposed to just know about the event itself. And use that in, you know, some of the STEM education about engineering of cars and that kind of thing. There is a Princess program that's open to freshmen and sophomores. I think it is freshmen and sophomore women that are at Indiana schools. There is the mini marathon, which is kind of the biggest fundraiser for the 500 festival. And then the 500 festival parade, which is probably the other kind of flagship event that the festival puts on. And there's a few other things that get involved with it. But my historically, our firm has had a deep involvement with the Speedway. I've always been interested in cars and racing, but the firm, we did the design work on the administration building when that was new, you know, several decades ago. And then we worked on the suites when the new pagoda was built out. And then most recently, I worked on a new building that's there that replaced the old octagonal sort of spinning sign that they use for both hospitality and then BMW, because Roger Penske is the largest BMW dealer in the country. Like a third of all BMWs that are sold go through Roger Penske dealerships. So he wanted to build a building at the track so that you could take delivery of your new BMW at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, have a professional driver teach you about your car, and then your first sort of experience with your new car would be driving it around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So I guess when you own the dealerships and you own the track, you get to do fun stuff like that. So so that was a fun project to work on, and that one's just a couple of years ago that we did that one. My involvement with the festival happened when really as soon as my wife and I moved back to Indianapolis. I mean, we'd always gone to the parade as kids and that kind of thing, but one of my wife's friends was on the VIP committee, actually Jerry Semler's daughter, and so she encouraged us to volunteer for what was the VIP committee at the time, and basically our role was to kind of provide hospitality to some of the celebrities that were coming for the race. I mean, we always kind of joke about the celebrities for the festival. They're, you know, sort of B-level celebrities. There were always the ones you could count on, Florence Henderson and Jim Neighbors, and, you know, people that used to be on the sitcoms when I was in like for fourth grade or something. But you know, the others are, you know, sort of rising stars and soap operas and all those that I've generally not heard of. But we got to help with that a little bit, which was kind of fun. I think we hosted. I'm blanking on his name right now. He was on the Brady Bunch. He played the oldest son on the Brady Bunch, and Ruth Buzzy was another one that we got to host. She was hilarious. And then Bob Frist, who's one of my business partners, was the president of 500 Festival, and he introduced me to Liz Kraft, you know, as a volunteer that had been involved, but sort of suggested to Liz that if, you know, she ever needed some creative mind to, you know, give me a call. And it turned out that she did sort of at the last minute. She had decided that the Queen's Ball had gotten stale, and you know, the attendance was down at it. It just, you know, it was sort of a remnant of the 1960s and just didn't feel like a fun event anymore. And she decided that she wanted to create an event called Floatatious, which was to it was kind of based on what they do down in New Orleans, where the idea was that the floats always are kind of interesting elements, and let's just put them in a building and have a party around the floats, and that would be the sort of evolution of the Queen's Ball. And she had a press conference scheduled to announce this new event, and realized that she hadn't really figured out for the press how the event would be staged and how it would be covered. She had identified the space where it would be, and she'd done some cutouts of the floats that were going to be there. And so 30 minutes before the press conference, she called on me to try to figure out how do we arrange all these things and make it, look like something good. And so I kind of figured out where the camera angles would be and how to, like Lily always has a nice float and IPL has a nice float. So let's feature those. And then the press conference went off without a hitch. So I think I made her look good. And so they invited me to be on the board. The board is 33 directors, and it used to be made up of about 2/3 were directors that came from sponsoring organizations. So IPL always has a board member, Lily always has a board member, companies that generally sponsor events for the festival. Finish Line usually always has a board member. And then there was another, the 2/3 were that, and 1/3 were essentially volunteers. So I came in under that tier. And when you're on the board, it's a 6-year stint. And you're usually assigned to different committees to oversee some of the different activities that happen with the festival. So my assignments initially were the mini marathon. I was overseeing the rest and recovery area from the mini marathon, and did some reorganization to that to make it a little bit more efficient and make it easier for people to reconnect. And then I got moved into track liaison, which was basically the connection between the festival and the track, especially focused on getting the drivers from the speedway to the parade on parade day. And I guess I organized that pretty well. We started a few traditions. Like one of the traditions I started, there's 3 buses of drivers, so 11 drivers get on each bus. And I decided that the best way to make sure they were on the bus was to post a sheet at the entrance to the bus, and the drivers had to sign in when they got on the bus. And so then it turns out that those sheets with all the drivers' signatures get to be fundraising elements that they could sell at auctions. And I guess they're still doing that. So that was kind of a fun deal. But of course, the big perk of being on the festival board is that you get a pace car to drive for a couple of months. They usually give them to you in early April, and then you have to turn them in the week after the race is over. And so that's fun. And I think I still hold the record for the most miles put on a pace car. I think I got
That's a very proud record.
Yeah, it was when I was driving to Chicago and Louisville all the time. So my pace car was up and down I-65. I said, I'm doing my work for GM. And so after I left the festival board, now I've continued to be a volunteer for the festival in the on the operations committee for the parade. So I work the driver's room to help get the drivers organized and into their cars when it's time for them to leave. And they've since merged. It used to be that we had the drivers in one room and the celebrities somewhere else. And then the celebrities wanted to meet the drivers. So now we're all together in the library. So I get to work with the celebs a little bit as well. So kind of fun stuff. It's a little like herding cats. It's kind of surprising. On parade day, we used to just call them out by their row number, but some of the drivers can't remember what row they're in, at least when they get into that space. And it's a bit like a fraternity. They're all playing pranks on each other, and they're having a good time. And usually, in with their spouses and family and stuff. So it's kind of a fun way to see a different side of the drivers.
Who was the strangest B-list celebrity that ever jumped into your car?
It's a good, well, I've had some good ones. We got one of the things when you're actually on the board, you get to drive the celebrities around the track and some of those parade laps before the race. And so I got to drive Ryan Sandberg around one year, and of course I'm a big Cubs fan, so that was awesome to be able to do that. And then I got to drive Cheech Marin you know, Cheech and Chong. So, you know, he was shouting, "Show me your," you know, to all the women in the audience as he was going around the track. And then one of the oddest, well, it was kind of a funny one, was Jake Short. I don't know if any of you guys have kids or watched Ant Farm or any of the Disney Channel stuff. But Jake Short's from Indianapolis. He's actually my kid's age and grew up in our neighborhood. And so it was an odd thing all of a sudden that he was one of the B-list celebrities, he and his mom, to ride around in the parade. I'm like, hey, you know, you're the kid from down the street. So that was kind of fun. But Ruth Buzzy was great. I mean, Florence Henderson was terrific. I miss her. She was always, you know, very nice in the celebrity room. She was always very worried that she was going to get out on time, so she would always check in with me to make sure that, you know, she hadn't missed her cue or anything yet. And you know, so she and Jim Neighbors would hang out all the time. I tell you, the Holman George family was the other sort of real odd ducks. You know, they I don't know, they were, you could tell that there was a lot of sort of disconnect within the family. There were some that really took the race seriously, and then most of the other ones just really liked getting the revenue from it, and they weren't as interested in sort of reinvesting in the track. So we always had to, you know, cater to the Georges, but they were the Holman George and Conforti. There were several wings to the family. So
I had
one of the other traditions that we started, and it was kind of when I saw that introductory piece that kind of hit me a little bit, was one of the years, and I was because I was working the driver's room, I didn't get to drive in the parade, so my wife was driving our pace car in the parade, and that year we had Dan Weldon as the driver that was in our pace car, and kudos to my wife, she had the good sense of asking him to sign our license plate on our pace car since he had ridden in it, and so we that year he ended up winning the race. And so we, you know, GM doesn't really want you to do it, but we stole the pace car license plate, and it has Dan Weldon's signature. And then I got a picture of myself with him at the trophy that year. So I have a little shrine to Dan Weldon in my den at home.
Ah, that's cool.
That was the race where the driver on the last lap hit the fourth turn wall, wasn't it? And then Weldon was in second.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right.
And so Weldon just on the last turn came around him, and all of a sudden he won and didn't.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I remember about that, it was when our office was over at New York and College, and he had a condo in the building that has the sushi restaurant 45 Degrees at Mass Avenue and College. And so whenever I'd stop at the traffic light on College, my phone would ask me if I wanted to connect to the Weldon network. It's like, you should at least change the name of his Wi-Fi network.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, my experience was kind of like Chuck. I always grew up loving the Indianapolis 500 as a kid and loving the track. And I wouldn't say I followed racing in general, but I did follow IndyCar racing because of the Indianapolis 500 until it was disbanded. Again, as Eric said, because of the Holman George family, weren't all necessarily as interested in racing as they were the track. But I just grew up loving the track, and my first opportunity to go to the race was one of my uncles, or a couple of my uncles were contractors, and when I was 15, I'd spent a couple summers working for them, and I knew how to put up the scaffolding. And because they would go to the race and put up scaffolding in the snake pit, by the end of the race, they weren't capable of taking it down. They'd had been overserved. So when I was 15, my uncle said, "Hey, I'll take you to the race if you put the scaffolding up and take it down." I was like, "Great. That's a sweet deal." So I go with my uncles, and so that's my first memory of the track. And then, of course, I went to the race many, many times. And then about 7 years ago, I was working on a church project in Columbus, Indiana, Faith Lutheran. And we were getting near the end of the project, and the owner's rep, who was a member of the congregation, Bill Schnackle, he and I kind of became friends. And he pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, you ever think about working at the Indy 500?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to work at the track, but I wouldn't want to park cars or take tickets or anything." I said,
Mhm.
"I'd love to work Gasoline Alley where all the action is." And he said, "Well, coincidentally, I'm the supervisor in Gasoline Alley. So if you apply, I'll support your application." And so that was 7 years ago, and I've worked 6 races, and I just love it. And got Chuck in Gasoline Alley too. Chuck found out I was working there. He ran into me one race day, working Gasoline Alley, and said, "Hey, how can I get here?" I was like, "Well, it's who you know, so I'll let Bill know."
And Bill
We got
Bill
Chuck
and
in.
Mike supported mine.
Yeah, but it was just pure coincidence that I got there. But I will say Gasoline Alley is obviously where all the action is. And the pits and the garages and all the fans and all the intermingling is really a huge safety concern. But I would also say for the yellow shirts, it's a really long, hard day. So
Mhm.
you get there at 6 a.m., you work until 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., you're in the sun all day, or you're in the rain all day, or you're in the cold all day. I've been there uh, on a practice day, Gasoline Alley, when it snowed in the morning. So it can be any kind of weather. You have to make a tough decision whether you want to wear a sunscreen all day or wear long pants and long sleeve shirt and cover up. So you're going to sweat one way or the other. The question is, do you have sunscreen on and sweat, or do you just sweat in your clothes? So it's a long, hard day. You're on your feet all day. And I only work every other day so I can rest in between.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd work every day during the month of May. I don't work the other race days like Chuck does. I'm just not as interested in NASCAR and some of the other races. But yeah, I love the Indy 500, and as long as they'll let me work there. And as Chuck said, there are some people who've worked Gasoline Alley 40 some years. I don't know if you saw the article this year in the Star about the lady in credentials who had worked 45 years in credentials, who just retired. But the other thing about yellow shirts that a lot of my friends and colleagues have mentioned now that they know I'm a yellow shirt is we all have white hair. And not only do you wear a yellow shirt, but you got gray hair. There's really no young people working there. So, but
It's
there's
just like
nothing.
Kiwanis. Nobody's joining. Young people
Yeah,
aren't joining yellow shirts either.
yeah.
Really,
There's
that kind of surprises me.
yeah, there's nothing like working Gasoline Alley on race day.
Right.
All the other days are interesting. Carb day, Fast Friday, qualifications. There's a lot of activity, but race day is special. And fortunately, where we work in Gasoline Alley, during the race, there's no one there. And Mr. Penske did us a huge favor. I put in some big TV screens right there so that during the race and near the end of the race, we can actually watch the last, I'd say, 15 to 20 laps. And of course, this year, the last 15 to 20 laps were amazing.
Were the race, yeah.
Yeah, so it was
But
very
you
kind of him
said
to do that.
you go to I mean, obviously a long, exhaustive day. When do you got to be there, and when do you get out?
Well, on race day, you have to be there at 5 a.m. and you typically don't get out until about 6 p.m. on race day. However, this year, because of the rain delay, I didn't get to my car till 9 p.m. And then it
Long
took
day.
me half an hour to get out of the parking lot because of everybody was leaving at the same time. But
Yeah, traffic was horrible this year.
yeah. But typically your schedule in Gasoline Alley is a 10-hour shift. And of course, we have multiple people, so you can take breaks and take lunch breaks. And the other thing that Mr. Pinsky did that was really kind was the first 3 years that I worked Gasoline Alley, our break room was a mechanical room with a mop sink in it and 2 water heaters. Well, he found that out, took another office that was basically not being used, completely redid it, got air conditioning for us. And so now we have a really nice break room. So all those little details, he doesn't miss a thing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So you, all three of you would, I mean, you would be on Team Penske. You agree that the sale to Penske was probably for the better?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, it was fun working with him when we were doing the BMW building, just because he's so picky about the details. It was nice to have, for those of us that have clients, it's nice to know that somebody really appreciates and looks at how you're trying to think stuff through. And yeah, the stuff that he was investing in is stuff that was in pretty derelict shape. So it had the Hellman Georges would put a nice coat of paint on it, but they were after, I think they kind of got burned with the Formula One stuff, when they did all the new suites and the new pagoda for Formula One, and then kind of realized, excuse me, that I don't know. At that time, Bernie was not the best friend to have in that, and so I think that is what soured the family a little bit on investing as much as they probably needed to in that asset. And so Roger didn't have that history, so he was happy to spend the money where he needed to spend it. It was interesting, all the stuff all of a sudden, they'd had some property where they would move carts or move old ovens or move stuff, and it was just sat there and sat there. And so that one of the first things when he got the track was all of a sudden this stuff would start showing up in auctions. So if you wanted to buy an old bus from the Speedway, you could get it. It was kind of amazing how much just crap they had left over. It was like, okay.
Yeah, I do have one other anecdotal story that I could share, and then maybe we could open it up for other stories if anyone else has one. So there's a lot. I have run across a few people that are a few, particularly guests and folks, and I'm not sure they're fans as much as they are feel very entitled. One of them I ran across last year. And maybe Eric, you and Mike have run across such people. One guest was the daughter of Troy Ruttman, and Troy Ruttman was the 52 500 winner, and he just so happens to this date to still be the youngest winner of the 500, and he was like 20 years old. Well, his daughter, who was Toady Ruttman, have you run across Toady, Eric?
No, I have not.
Okay. Toady Ruttman. So I was working the fuel gate, which is one of the gates into the back of sort of Gasoline Alley. And she comes through, and she was in her little fancy golf cart. And all the vehicles that enter Gasoline Alley have to have a special pass on it. No exceptions. Well, she didn't have a special pass. So we stopped her, and she said she was, very, she was very surprised that we would challenge her. And she said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." And she was Troy Ruttman's daughter. And she insisted that we go to someone of a superior and let her drive her little cart in and wherever she wanted to go. So we had to go track down a supervisor, a yellow hat or a white hat, and get her where she needed to be. She just come from the mayor's breakfast, by golly, and that this was a wrong to stop her from where she needed to be. So every now and then you run across some entitled people out there that feel like they could go wherever they want to go. So I don't
Did
know.
she get in?
I think one person that I was with who'd been there a lot longer, yellow hat, had recognized her, knew who she was. He went to get the proper permission for her to take her card in. Yeah, and go where she needed to go. And I just sort of stepped back.
I think the one I had that was similar to that was Jim Cornelison, he's now sings back home again in Indiana.
Yeah.
And he showed up in the VIP room and he hadn't been put in the parade. And so it was really, I mean, the issue was, it was an issue from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because they neglected to tell us that he was supposed to be in the parade. So we didn't have him in the parade register. We didn't show him as being somebody that should be in the VIP room with the drivers. And you know, fortunately, I recognized him, so we didn't have a problem with him being in the room. But it was sort of like, he's like, well, when do I go out in the parade? And so we had to kind of work behind the scenes to figure out, you know, where we could put him in the parade after everything else had already gotten started. So we ended up putting him on the IMS float, and it ended up working out fine. But it was made us look kind of bad. It's like,
yeah, he's rightfully indignant, I would think. Now, someone who is daughters of someone that won, 50 years ago, maybe not so much.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Does anyone else have an Indy 500 story they want to tell? I mean, Eric and Chuck and I could tell stories all day about what we see at the track. But
I've got one. It's not a story, but it's a connection to the 500. I worked in Speedway at a place called Rotes Engineers, and I started there in '74 and worked until we closed it in 2005, or sold actually. But Ryman Rotes, who was the son of the founder of Rotes Engineers, was a Rose Hallman graduate and really well respected there. Matter of fact, that Rotes still has a testing lab over there at Rose Hallman. But he was very active and helped start USAC. He became chair of the certification committee for that group, and he was chair of the USAC rules committee, and the chair of the certification committee was for the 500. So he was over there, kind of like what Tom Binford ended up doing. I think they changed the title, chief steward, but that's what Ryman Roach did for about 10 years over there. So he was very active, and he died in a plane crash north of Crawfordsville in 1960.
Oh, wow.
With 2 or 3 other members. 2 of them, I think, were USAC members, and one was a newscaster. I don't know if you all remember, it was 1967. So we lost quite a few people there. So Raymond passed away then. But my first year working at Rotes for the 500, it's close. We're close to the track. We're on High School Road. So it comes lunchtime, you go, I think I'm gonna go over and grab me a hot dog and a beer and watch some cars. So me and a buddy went over there, and I'm walking along the fence, and all of a sudden, here's my boss. I go, oh shit. My first year working here, he's caught me loafing off, and he goes, hey, have a great time, Raj. It's a beautiful day. So that was I've enjoyed it ever since. We went to like 25, 30 races right in a row. I just loved it. So that 500 has hit many people in Indianapolis, and it's part of our core. So I love what you guys do. It's gonna be a long day.
Hey, thank you all for sharing. They are fun. My father-in-law was a yellow shirt before I knew John years ago, but you represent a much kinder, gentler yellow shirt than what they were known for in the past. I appreciate that very much. I don't go anymore, but we're used to every year. And Eric, I think I remember the flotation party at the state fairgrounds. There was a party like that. I don't remember if that was the first or if that was in effect, but I think the most notorious thing about it was one of the women guests wore some kind of a tight outfit that was see-through. And she created quite a stir at the party. I don't think anybody really saw the floats. I think they just saw this gal in this really incredibly revealing outfit. So that's my recollection.
Well, there's one, and I don't know if it's the same person, but she actually was nude and painted her outfit on.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right,
Yeah.
Eric. Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Uh-huh. I want to know
Very
who
distracting.
did the painting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was her name Godiva?
Yeah.
No,
It,
yeah.
it didn't take me very long to paint her.
Well, thank you all three very much. I mean, living here, it's all part of our history, but to get the some details and some nuances and some fun stories, it's always good to hear, and we're all happy that you're going to continue, and maybe you will recruit some more, and maybe without white hair, who knows?
Yeah.
But thank you so much, and a donation is going to be given in your name to Changing Footprints. They collect, sort, and redistribute unused shoes each year to those in need locally throughout the United States and in 21 countries. And I just got a email from Steve Farrell reminding us that Ted Mao and his band is going to be playing tonight at the Historical Society. So if you don't have anything to do, and you want to go to the Historical Society downtown tonight, that's the place to go. Okay.
Mary, can I interrupt you?
What?
Can I interrupt you just a second?
Sure.
I talked to Ted the other day. We had a meeting and asked him about that. He goes, "I think it's all sold out because you gotta buy seats or tables. So if you want to go, I'd call down there first. That's all."
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, check it out first. All right, here's the stupid dad joke. Here we go. I got carded at a liquor store and my Blockbuster card accidentally fell out of my wallet. The cashier said, "Never mind." And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. See you next week. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Yeah.